Step out.
You want to wear the dam over there?
Step out.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by CartKing.com. That's 877-986-7771. That's cart-king.com. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps the business you have right now wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, food, and carts and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, secure outdoor retail, food, carts, or kiosks to smaller indoor flower carts, coffee carts. CartKing.com designs and builds them all. So what you do is you go to cart-king.com. That's the website. You'll look for the kind of design that you think would apply to your business. Okay? Then they'll custom design it for you. They'll put your logos on there, all that kind of stuff. They'll custom build it for you, and then they'll ship it worldwide. Cart-king.com, 877-986-7771. When you call them up, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and that's how you get a good deal. Cart-king.com. Okay, I want to get into this whole business here going on with this yellow vests in France. Okay, the yellow vest protests. Very interesting to me that it does seem that it has widespread support from both the left and the right. And if you look at their yellow vest manifesto, their what they want, what they're calling for, they're calling on a rollback on immigration. They're calling on a reduction in taxes down to 25%. No person would be taxed more than 25%. So, and there's a lot of left there and there's a lot of right there as well. Okay, which is fine. I think that our revolution we should have here should include left and right. We're all getting screwed. And I think we can have a mixture of capitalism and socialism, but we got to arrest these guys at the top. And I think the pathway to overthrowing our system that we have right now and bringing these people to justice and bringing us economic justice and freedom and equality, the path to that is a general strike, just like they're doing in France. We all have to take to the streets, and we all have to join in a general strike. That's where we all clog up the streets, and we all refuse to work until our demands are met. Now, one thing is you're hearing a lot of people out there saying, well, these French, these yellow vests, they're taking to the street. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump even said, they're chanting Trump, Trump, Trump. Okay? Now, I've been watching a lot of videos. I have not heard anybody chanting Trump, Trump, Trump. But even on Laura Ingraham, I listen to the Laura Ingraham show in the morning, okay, on my way to school when I drop my daughter off at school. And they love to say over there, oh, they're marching because they're fed up with socialism. They're tired of it over there. And they're calling for the end of socialism. Well, we don't hear that either. And I'm going to play for you here a little bit of what's going on over there in Europe. I'll be right back after this.
Du mouvement social, du mouvement social, du mouvement social, du mouvement social, Et pas des actionnaires, on va les fonctionnaires. Et pas les actionnaires, on va les fonctionnaires. Et social, du mouvement, du mouvement, du mouvement social. Du mouvement social.
Grève générale, tous ensemble, grève générale,
Tous ensemble, grève générale. 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 Caca, pipi, capitaliste. Caca, pipi, capitaliste. Caca, pipi, capitaliste. Dégage. Caca, pipi, capitaliste. 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 Caca, pipi, du mouvement social.
Well, there you get an idea. You get an idea what's going on over there in France. And I got to tell you something. First of all, anybody who's telling you that these guys are anti-socialist, they're chanting "Caca, PP, capitaliste." Okay, well, you know what "caca, PP" means, right? You know, it means a poop and piss. Capitalist. Okay, so these guys are definitely anti-capitalist. Okay, and if you look at the crowds, by the way, these crowds are huge, man. And when they're showing this video, the video is just because they're all dancing and smiling. They're very happy people. And they're looking around in every different direction. And there's like 10,000 people all down every street. Okay. And one of the reasons why they're so happy is because they know that the general strike works. Okay. They know that this is and a lot of them too are older people. They're in their 60s and 70s and they're smiling because they know that this works. Okay. And I got to tell you something else. I'm encouraged by this, okay? And I know this would work here in the United States. We could bring them to their knees. And I got to tell you something else, too. I was looking this up. Did you know that 80% of all the countries in the world have nationalized oil industry. We are the minority that has privatized oil industry. You know what? One of the other countries that's privatized oil industry? Russia. Okay? Dictatorships, oligarchs, they run their countries with privatized and giving that money to their buddies. $200 billion a year in profits in the oil industry that could be in your pockets and in my pockets. And the way of reduced gas prices, reduced the cost of goods and services, reduced across the board, the greatest economic stimulus this country would ever see in our history. People are smiling when they're marching down there and they're singing these songs over there in France because they know that this works. And we all know, every one of us knows deep down, that we have the possibility, there's the potential right now in our lifetimes to end poverty worldwide, to end homelessness. $200 billion a year. How many homes could you build for $200 billion a year? How about the 8 million we give per day to Israel? How many homes could we build for $8 million a day here in the United States? Everybody says, we'll take care of our veterans before we take care of those caravanners, right? By the way, we could take all the caravanners too. Every problem we have on this earth today has a solution today. Even disease and illness could be reduced on such a grand scale overnight with just basic health care, basic health education, basic nutrition. We know everything that needs to be done. Now, why aren't these things being done? And if we know how to do it, why aren't they being done? Because of the greed of a few, of a tiny few. We outnumber them millions to one, but yet still this small group has power over us, and they're driven by greed, insanity, and evil. They're not like you and me, okay? They've been brought up differently, and we need to separate them and isolate them because they're a danger to the rest of us. They're far more of a danger to you and me than Michael Cohen is. Okay, even though he is sort of one of them. You know, like, there was something in these people and in Michael Cohen that they were raised to believe that greed and selfishness is okay, that it's an acceptable trait. Some people would say it's an admirable trait to be greedy and selfish and to want to hoard money onto yourself. Hoard more money than you could ever possibly use, that you could ever possibly spend. Every problem that we face on this earth today could be resolved. Disease, poverty, hunger, homelessness, war. These are all things that we all want. These are all things that every sane, rational person wants. And it's just a small few who want these things. And it's up to us to use these tactics of these yellow vests, to use these tactics of a general strike. You know, and some of the things they're chanting when you, because I've had some of it translated for me, is they're saying we want a movement, a big movement of social change. We want a big strike where we all strike together. You know, things, you know, oh, anyway, it can't get any worse than it is now. And a lot of people say too, well, okay, well, Ed, if we all strike, you know, and the people who run things are all, you know, run through the streets and, you know, we run them into the jails, you know, which would be an easy ride for them. Then everything will fall apart. The society will collapse. It really won't. Everyone, the workers, will all go back to their job the next day. Everyone will. The world runs on workers, on the labor of the workers, the people who show up to work every day. It's these leeches, these stockholders, these people who say, I don't need to work. I have a piece of paper that works for me and will provide income for me. These are the leeches. They're not working. They're not contributing anything. We lock them up. Okay? You know, and we're done with them. It's like a cancer being cut out of society. And then, you know, we begin educating our children for the future. We tell them greed is not a good trait to have. Selfishness is not a good trait to have. We do have to separate these people from their money. We have to separate them from their power, and we have to isolate them where they can't harm people. Okay, in good, decent living conditions. We got to put them up in house arrest. Would I be happy with? I'd be fine with at this point. Okay, but we need a worldwide revolution, a reset of housing values and housing prices. Maybe even some kind of restrictions on landlords, on home ownership. Everyone should have home ownership. That we shouldn't have one person be allowed to own a home and rent it out to another person. And because that's what drives the value of these homes, where the housing costs are astronomical and they can't be maintained. The economic conditions we live under right now are intolerable, okay? And they're not going to get any better. They're only going to get worse. We see more and more homeless on the street every day. We see housing prices go up. I was just talking about the other day, I'm driving around, I see another medical building opening up. 20 years ago, we didn't have all these medical building on every corner and every parking space is full, that all these people need to go to the doctor constantly. You know, our health is diminishing. Our sanity seems to be diminishing. Our economic sustainability is deteriorating. Our infrastructure's deteriorating. These are all simple solutions. We just have to get rid of the people who are obstructing and preventing us from implementing these solutions. And this can be done through the general strike, through these movements like the Yellow Vest, where people take to the streets and say, we will not tolerate this any longer. You are not allowed to do this to me. You're not allowed to do this to my family. So I do have hope when I see the Yellow Vests here and everything that's coming out. Okay, and I hope and pray that it would catch fire around the world, because we could change things overnight in our lifetime. And the greatest failure of my life would be to go to my grave and think that in my lifetime, we just let all of this slip through our fingers. It's right at the tip of our fingers. And something as simple as nationalizing the oil industry, where $200 billion would be a year, would be circulated in this economy to workers, would change this and this planet overnight. And just think too, it would also reduce wars and greeds and conflicts around the world as well. Listen, guys, thank you so much, and don't forget, we outnumber them 100 to 1. We won this already. We just need to get our act together and grow some balls and tell them they're not allowed to do this to us anymore. Okay.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this portion of the show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Go to emailrevealer.com, get a copy of my book, how to become a successful private investigator, but also to all kinds of investigations, email tracing. You locate someone from a screen name or an email, a cyber stalking information, intimidation cases. Okay, everybody's watching on TV here. Oh my God. This whole thing going on with this caravan coming up from Honduras. And I'm watching this. And I'm outraged like everybody else. It just looks like this crazy situation. They're throwing tear gas across the border. Trump's closing down the border, all this stuff. But I'm starting to look at this and I'm saying, you know what? It just doesn't add up, man. And I start hearing from people I know. Now, our next guest is Yoli Castro. I've known her for 5 years. She's a listener to the show, but she lives down there in Mexico. And we've had a contact besides the show and this kind of stuff. So she's down there. She's an eyewitness to what's going on. And she's going to give us her perspective on what she's seeing and hearing and experiencing down there firsthand from someone we can trust, because she's not an agent. She's not a crank or anything like that. I don't think she's a right-wing fanatic or even a left-wing fanatic. Or she might be an Opperman fanatic, but otherwise I think she's pretty cool. Yoli Castro, are you there?
Yes, I am, Ed. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Tell the audience about yourself. Who is Yoli Castro?
Well, I'm a Mexican citizen born in Baja California. I went to school in Los Angeles. I had a student visa from kindergarten all the way up to junior year of high school. And then I came back home, which is Rosarito Beach. Which is about, I'm going to say 20, 25 minutes from where all the chaos is going on. It's well known for the Rosarito Beach Hotel, which was in the 20s and 30s was famous for, celebrities coming down during Prohibition to drink. And it's also an area well known for Puerto Nuevo, which is where world famous for lobster.
Ah, very nice. I love lobster. I can't eat lobster anymore, but I used to love lobster. So now give us an idea. What are you seeing down there?
Well, it's a Mexican-Greek tragedy is what it is, or a Hispanic-Greek tragedy, I should say. We started hearing news about people, that there was a caravan coming up from Honduras. They came in through the Guatemalan-Mexico border. It broke through the Guatemalan-Mexican border, and there is a wall there on that side. There isn't free roaming from, Central America into Mexico. There never has been. But in any case, so they started going through, Chiapas and all those different areas. And they had been getting help along the way. You hear different stories. And, of course, everybody's heart goes out to them and all that. But we would see reports that they were giving them rides and taking them food and water and all that. So, they had help. And then there was a group in Guadalajara, and the next thing we heard, this is like 2-3 weeks ago, that they were headed towards Tijuana. Okay. And there's a local reporter here by the name of Alfredo Alvarez, who's like all day, every day. He's a television and print reporter. And so he was, he's updating constantly on this since it started. And he reported when the first buses, they actually rented buses and came into Playas at Tijuana, which is it's part of Tijuana. It's like what you call a borough of Tijuana, but it's along the ocean, whereas Tijuana proper is not. In any case, so when they came into Playas, they came from south to north, oddly enough, so they had to go through the Playas of Tijuana toll booth, which is the way you would go to the San Diego border. In any case, the first guy, the bus stops, they get out of it, and they ran them all through. And then they end up in Playas in some little park area. And he was actually reporting that there were like some 200, something like that, over 200. And so they were setting up camp, and they had actually rented a house via Airbnb at over $200 a night for what I would assume were the main people, the organizers, or whoever they were. And that apparently the first group was like an LGBTQ group who showed up. And they actually had a symbolic wedding ceremony about 10 days ago in Tijuana. But since then, we haven't really heard about them, and we've had an influx of, apparently they're like around 9,000 right now, or 9,000 plus in the Baja California area. The majority of them are concentrated in Tijuana.
Well, let me stop you right there for a second. Now, you're saying that there's an LGBTQ group, and the leaders of this group are somehow involved in lending support to this, or they're organizing this caravan coming up?
I think that they're like little different factions because I haven't heard any reports on that particular group. After the symbolic wedding ceremony, they haven't really been reporting on them, and the group is gargantuan now.
Right.
So it started out with a couple hundred, now it's 9,000.
What do you know about how things were organized down in Honduras to get this whole ball rolling?
Well, oddly enough, there's the guy from the LGBTQ group is reportedly, and they gave his name and everything on the reports, that he was from, he's a U.S. citizen, and he is supposedly a student at Princeton. And he came, so, I guess his parents are from Mexico. And then the other guy who is also, I've heard his name mentioned in other reports, not just a local guy, but out of the United States as well. His name is Irineo Mujica. And he's with like Pueblos Sin Fronteras or something like that. In any case, he's also a U.S. citizen. Well, the parents are supposedly also from Mexico. So these are not organizers who are directly from Honduras. They went from the United States down to Honduras and started, I guess, gathering people together to get them to come across. Okay. And you can look him up on Facebook. This last guy, you can look him up on Facebook.
And another name you mentioned here on the post you put on my page was Roberto Flote?
Flote, yeah.
Flote, okay.
He's the guy who's supposedly a Princeton student. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this is fascinating. Now, let's look at the motivations here and try and figure this out. Because why would some LGBT liberal types from Princeton want to sponsor this kind of thing right before the midterm elections where Trump can be shown to be strong and stopping them? You know what I mean? It doesn't this kind of rile up the Trump base? And then it kind of did rile them up and get them going. Who would be behind that? Not your average Democrat, not your average leftist or liberal. Who would want that?
I have no idea, but I don't know that it has anything to do with the United States in particular.
Oh, no? Okay.
I mean, today is the last day of the presidency of Peña Nieto. Tomorrow, López Obrador comes in. Peña Nieto has done nothing, absolutely nothing. And why would he? I mean, this happens in the very last 3-4 weeks of his presidency. So they've done nothing.
Right.
It's all local, city and state officials who have been, leading with the problem. We'll see what happens after tomorrow. I don't know what they're going to do. Supposedly, it was reported that López Obrador is promising, to give him work and asylum and whatever. But it sounds to me that the majority is not interested in that. They want to go to the United States. But to what I can understand, they're making money. If you look on Irineo Mujica's Facebook page, they have comments from people, and this is back in October, the end of October, where they're saying that he's making money off of this, and then they're saying the other guy did too. So I think these, lower level instigators are making money. I don't think they're, the real heads of the movement at all. They can't be. I don't think it's, as I put in that post, I think nothing has anything to do with Trump or Peña Nieto. I think it's something way beyond that, because this is not something that's just happening in Mexico. This is happening this happened in Costa Rica. The Nicaraguans were going, making a mass migration over to Costa Rica, and the Costa Ricans were protesting. And I think there were actually, from the reports that I saw, this was back in August, I didn't know it at the time because you didn't really hear anything about it. But apparently there were even some, deaths due to the protests and all that. And they were saying basically the same thing that they're saying here. It's not that, and basically what a lot of American citizens say. It's not that we don't want the immigration. We just want legal so they know who's coming in, which, makes sense.
Also, too, we're seeing reports over here that that the Mexican police are reporting that a little girl was killed in this tear gas.
Not true.
Not true.
That's a lie.
Okay. Now,
there's a lot of lies that are being. Look, everybody's getting lied to.
Yeah.
The migrants are being lied to. The from what they're saying in the edges, there's a lot of lies that are going around. That nobody was killed.
And also, too, you're in this post too that you sent me. You're telling me that the migrants are being told, and these are uneducated people for the most part, except for these organizers.
Very educated, yeah.
Right, and they're being told that the Russians are coming to help them and the Iranians are coming to help them?
Yes, that the Russians are coming with tanks, that the Iranians are also coming to help them. They're being told that there are 20 cities in the United States, Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York waiting for them, that there are 35 buses right just over the border waiting for them to cross through, they're being lied to. They're being convinced that they will get asylum, that they just have to wait it out to Christmas, and then Christmas everybody's heart will, melt, and that they'll let them all in.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous. I mean, none of the things they're being told are true.
This is hard.
To the point.
Go ahead.
Well, to the point that when they, all these people are being held in a shelter, which is like an open air, like a baseball/soccer field. So it's open air. So they are literally, as of, yesterday, sleeping in mud and filth. And they had, 2 days ago, so they've been looking for another shelter where they could keep everybody and where they would have, before they knew it was, when they knew it was going to rain. And so they found one that's in an area called Mariano Matamoros, which is where they are now is like right up against the international highway, which is right up against the border wall. So the area where they want to take them, which is a venue big enough to house them all and have them all undercover, they don't want to go because they're telling them, if you go off into those buses, they're going to take you to, they're going to arrest you and they're going to deport you. And to the point where the Alfredo Alvarez reporter this morning was reporting that a lady had gone and taken pictures of a nearby jail and brought back the pictures and say, that's where they're taking you. And that's not true. You can see on his reports the place where they actually want to take them. And so far, they've started to move, but like out of all the people, like only 700 were agreed to go immediately. So you're talking about all the rest of them are still sitting there in the rain. They don't want to go. They're afraid to go.
It almost reminds me of the whole thing with at the burn sanctuary up there in Oregon when the Bundy Ranch people went up there and they were being told, oh, reinforcements are coming. They're coming and, the militias are coming to help you. They were being told all these crazy stories. People are isolated and they're being fed all these crazy stories. But I don't think that's by accident. Now, what would motivate someone to lie to these people and have them out there in the cold and in the rain?
Because if they start moving them, well, one of the ideas is that they start losing power, and not the actual Hondurans because they're not just Hondurans, they're El Salvadorians and Guatemalans, and there are people from other countries too. It's not just them. So there are other people who are kind of not in the vast majority, of course, but they're being told the truth by the reporters, by local citizens, by the cops, and they don't. At this point, apparently they're starting to become a rift between the organizers as well, because what the organizers are telling them is not panning out. And, what they're telling them locally is, and they're helping them with food and shelter, but they keep agitating them. They're agitating them and like that thing about the tear gas. Well, how come nobody was telling anybody that what they were throwing rocks and bottles at the border agents first? Which, neither side is the whole thing is tragic. But they're being told that they will be let in, and local people have told them repeatedly, and they know they don't qualify for asylum. That's the whole deal, that a lot of them know they do not qualify for asylum.
Well, in the American press, then why do you think the American press is supporting this chaos?
I don't know. I have no understanding of that. I mean, it's one thing to want to, help people. It's another thing to undermine your own situation to do so. I mean, here in Mexico, well, let me put it this way. So then we started hearing, Mexico's racist and, Mexicans are against the Hondurans. But that's ridiculous. If you look at the videos, you can't tell a Mexican from a Honduran. We're all Hispanic. We all have the basic same complexion. So, and it's not a matter of racism. It's a matter of Tijuana is not set up for 10,000 people to live on the street. Tijuana is not set up to employ that many people. So it's not a matter of not wanting to help. People are taking clothes and food and trying their best to, because there are kids and there are women, but not what they're reporting other places where they're saying that it's all women and children. That's not true. The vast majority, 3-to-1, if not 4-to-1, are men.
Okay.
And why they would say something different than what it is, I don't know. That's the way the world is now. You don't get the truth.
Okay, so you're an eyewitness. Okay, so now here in the United States, we're seeing, I guess these photos are being staged then, where the American press goes down there and they're focusing on women and children.
Well, yeah, they pick and choose what they want to show.
And you're also saying, too, that these photos where the women and children are being run through the tear gas, those as well?
Well, look, we're across in the videos. If you look at Alfredo Alvarez's videos, I mean, he's got several a day. You see, there's like a canal there. It's like the LA Canal and the LA River. When I was school, I used to have to separate LA River. Well, this is like, I'm about to say, twice. Okay, so it's pretty big. So when you cross over from San Diego into Mexico, you would be driving by that. You wouldn't necessarily see it, but if you're like on a bridge going back into the United States, you would see the LA River. Well, this one is the closest area to the border. So they were going down one side and running up, and I'm talking about, I don't know if it was dozens or hundreds but they were throwing rocks and bottles and things like that. And that's when that melee started. But there were Mexican reporters there too. It wasn't that they shot it at them. They were trying to get them to back off from the border wall. But I'll say again, they're being instigated. They're being told that they're going to be let in. And you had one person, I can't remember if it was a man or a woman who was trying to, I think with a kid running through the border, like in between the car, trying to get across, which is, I mean, anybody who's ever crossed the Tijuana border knows that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But they're telling them that they can. And at this point, they have, and what they do is they send the women in front. And there's a video, and everything I'm saying to you has been recorded. So, I mean, I've seen them. So they have a Tijuana police officer telling a group of migrants, of men, saying, you need to be men. You need to not send your women and children in front. They're not going to feel sorry for you. And if you attack them, they're going to fight back. And they told them that before that happened, I believe. And so, he said, you can't be sending the women and children in front. So what they're doing is, yes, there are women and children. That is true. But they're making it seem as if it's the majority, and it's not.
What about within the migrants? Are there predators within the migrants that are committing crimes against other migrants?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
Yes. As a matter of fact, there was a report this morning. This reporter was in the shelter where they are currently situated now. They're trying to get that out. They don't want them to stay there. They're going to close it down because they can't be out in the rain. They said they're living they're sleeping in mud and they're living in garbage. They're surrounded by garbage. I mean, a lot of people are upset because everything is filthy. I mean, it's just garbage everywhere. What they're doing is because a lot of them were, of course, soaked to the bone and blankets and all that. Now they're just making piles of mildewy clothes, and they're just waiting for people to bring them more. But they were reporting and they were showing the whole the area where they've been sleeping, and they have tents set up and cardboard houses and that sort of a thing. And they were showing the porta potties, and they're saying that a lot of the women can't go to the bathroom alone because they have to go and because they get accosted. Another guy was arrested because he beat his wife. Somebody else was arrested because he was doing drugs right there in the middle of all of them. So, yeah, they are having problems amongst themselves, but they're all like, in one little tiny area.
Okay, we got to take a little commercial break. Okay, it's going to be about 3 minutes long. We can't talk during the commercial break, and you won't be able to hear it, but we'll be right back after 3 minutes. We're talking to Yoli Castro, who is someone I've known for a long time. Okay, so she's a first-hand eyewitness down there in Mexico. And she's describing what she's seeing down there, and a lot of it is what she's seeing from the news down there from Alfredo Alvarez. Has YouTube videos too. We can look him up on YouTube.
Yes, you can look him up on Facebook. If you look up Alfredo Alvarez, you'll find his Facebook page.
Yeah, I should probably try and get an interview with him too. Okay, we'll be right back after these messages. We're talking about this caravan coming up here, and what seems to be a lot of exploitation going on from every different side. Every different angle here. So we'll be right back with more of Yoli Castro after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Check out CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing, and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites. And we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Yoli Castro, who's a Mexican resident, citizen, and she's telling us about what she's seeing down there with these Honduran caravan. Now, one more thing I wanted to ask you about this, when we see this canal that they were trying to run over, right? And here in the United States, they're reporting that there was human sewage in that canal. What do you know about that?
Well, only if they went to the bathroom there. No, it's a canal for fluvial water. No.
So it's like what we call that storm drains here in Vegas. It's a storm drain canal.
Yeah, I would say that. Yes, it's exactly what it is. So when you see them running, you see them running down one side and up the other. No, right. It's if I recall correctly, it's dry. It hadn't even rained for a long time, so there's no reason for there to be water through that.
No, you could see water. You could see water in the videos, the ones that we're looking at.
It was like small puddles of water. I don't remember. I can't remember.
Yeah,
now.
but about 6 inches, 8 inches of water. But the reporters here are saying that they could smell human sewage in that water. Now, I know that water smells because we have those canals here all over Vegas, and I know that water smells. But we don't have human sewage in ours. Maybe some dog feces makes its way down there. But
part of the problem is there aren't enough toilet facilities for 9,000 people, so
right.
They're finding like bags of human excrement along the streets. So I probably did smell like sewage.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense too. Now, what about people going missing in this group? This must be rife for kidnapping, human trafficking, all kinds of stuff.
Not that I'm aware of that it's happening here, but what they are, these supposed organizers are telling them is, for example, there was a voluntary repatriation effort, and so that's the only thing that the federal government provided was the plane to take them back to their homes.
Yeah.
And they're telling people, don't get on the planes, don't get on the buses. People who've gotten on the planes have disappeared. Entire families have disappeared, which is patently untrue. That is not the truth. These people volunteered to go home because some have figured out they're not going to get anywhere with all of this, so they wanted to go home. But they're filling them with fear and lies so that they stay where they are, and in worse conditions, probably than what they were living in at home. It's very sad. It's tragic what's going on, how they're being used and manipulated and lied to.
Oh boy. Okay,
and they don't want to go to the new shelter. I mean, it has showers there. It's a huge one that will house them all with with roof, and so they won't be out in the rain. A place to sleep, and more toilet facilities. And where they are now, they don't have any showers, and so it's like I guess it was like for a concert venue or something like that. But well, why would we want to go there? They're going to take us to jail, or why would we want to go there? Then we have to. It's so far to come back here and fill out our paperwork. So at this point, they think that it's a matter of standing in line that's going to get them across. And then you have now, supposedly there are 10 women who are going to go on a hunger strike to force the United States to, make the paperwork go quicker, which is ludicrous. I mean, a lot of these things, a child wouldn't believe them, but
yeah,
that's what they have them believing.
That's the thing. See, because in any kind of group like this, a protest or, even a Standing Rock, things like that, yeah, rumors travel and there's panic, there's chaos. But normally there's leadership, that is looking out for the group, the trusted leadership that can tell them, no, this is what's going on. And you know what I mean? So that's not going, there's disinfo. The leadership is disinfo down there.
Yes, they're actually, they're leading them like lambs into slaughter because they're not going to let them in. They don't qualify for these. They're telling them don't show any paperwork.
Don't give your real name. They're telling them.
Any paperwork. What's that?
They're saying don't give your real name.
Yes, they're telling them don't give your real name, don't show your paperwork, don't do anything, and then they're turning around and blaming the immigration, Mexican immigration, and But that's not how it is. I mean, to anybody, I don't care if you're American or Russian or Honduran or whatever you are, to come to Mexico legally, it's the same as the United States. You got to show, some form of ID, specifically a passport. I mean, same thing for me to go into the United States, but they're telling them not to show up because they're going to write down their names and they're going to hand them to Trump. And then when time comes for their turn, that he's going to deny them because they were in the group of agitators, which is, of course, ridiculous. He's not going to know whose name is on there. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous, but that's what they're telling him. And a lot of these people are believing it. And some, I guess have more of a idea that, that's not the case, but they're going to see, what happens. And so that's where they are. I mean, this is not about the Mexican immigration. It's what they're being told. I mean, this didn't happen when the Haitians were here. I mean, they were, thousands of them were here when they were trying to get into the United States after. And I mean, if anybody qualified for asylum, it was them. They had, their country was destroyed and then, was looted by the Clintons. So, and they didn't get in, and a lot of them worked here. I mean, they would work at the local car wash. They were working everywhere, but it was an entirely different situation. A lot of them stayed and got jobs and have started businesses. And, one guy's writing a book. I mean, it was an entirely different situation.
Okay,
the attitude was different.
Okay, we're not aware of this whatsoever. Okay, the first I heard about 3,000 Haitians down in Mexico is from your message to me. Now, how would 3,000 Haitians be able to make it from Haiti over to Mexico?
That particular, I don't know, but if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not going to remember the exact date, but they were trying to get into the United States. I remember hearing on one of your shows, as a matter of fact, that there was some guy who was at the in New York, I believe, and he was protesting against Hillary Clinton. There was a group of Haitians, or it was on YouTube. But they were protesting against Hillary Clinton, asking about where the money was that they had collected for the Haitians and all that, and they hadn't done anything. And then if you listen to who was it? You did the interview with James Ortel?
James Ortel, yeah, and also Backer, the woman Backer, Kathy Backer, I think her name was.
Yeah, and so they were, all talked about how they never got a dime, they didn't build a thing, and and all these people were in dire straits. And so there were, I think it was over 3,000 Haitians who were at the border trying to get into the United States. And I kind of want to say it was around this time, a year, 2 years ago. But in any case, they didn't get in, of course. So a lot of them ended up working and living here in the Tijuana Rosarito area. And look, the only reason you can tell that they're here, that they're not Mexican, is because they're black. We're not. So, that's it. Other than that, they might as well be Mexican. There's no, it was, they blended in very well. I mean, they have done okay here.
There's not an agenda. There isn't an agenda that brought 3,000 Haitians there to agitate and cause problems. Okay. Now you're telling me about this guy, this Yellow Dog, a self-proclaimed Honduran reporter. What do you know about Yellow Dog? What's the story with that?
I never heard of him. I heard him in one of the reports from Alfredo Alvarez, and I looked him up on his Facebook page, and he's a Honduran, and he's not reporting, he's agitating. And he's one of the ones who's telling them that, they have to let you in. I think it might be him, the one who was telling that the Russians were coming and that, everybody was behind him and they're waiting for them in the United States and all this sort of stuff, which is, patently untrue. And he is out of Honduras. From what I can see, he is coming from Honduras as opposed to the other guys who are coming out of the United States. So I don't know. Supposedly they're all, social justice warriors or whatever it is they are, but they're not. This isn't any kind of justice for anybody. I mean, it's really. Look, on both sides of the border, they're saying that they're losing money about like over $5 million a day, which I would bet that it's more than that, just on commerce. Right. That's just on commerce. So, and I would guarantee it's more than that. And then, for example, in the United States, they report that the border's closed. Well, there are 3 different borders that you can cross. So the San Ysidro border is one, Otay is another one, and then Tecate is another one. And then you still got another one in Mexicali that goes over into Calexico. These 3 go into San Diego County, and the other one goes into Calexico. Yeah, but if you walk across that Tijuana border, for lunch, you go down and go shopping, go drinking at night, and they close down that border. You can't walk down, into the next border. You know what I'm saying? No, you can't. Right. And you can't when a lot of Americans are who live here and work in the States or, they are opening the border. It's not like it's closed down for 24 hours. They're opening it. They're closing it, at several hours time, especially when they have, they have a mass group trying to, ram their way through. Then we're closing it down. But I mean, we're talking about hours at a time, but it is slowing down the traffic. So, right. Normally a 30-minute border wait is now a 3-hour border wait. So. All right, let's get into when it's the tourist season, Yeah, let's get into the whole thing because you're a businesswoman down there. You run a business, and you have that special passport to go back and forth and travel back and forth across the border at will, anytime you want, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so now, how would it if they were to start building a wall down there? How would this affect you and your business? I don't see how it would affect me in any way. It doesn't prevent me from crossing into the border. If I want to go buy supplies in the United States, I could. It wouldn't affect me. I mean, it's like, let me put it to you this way. If you and I were neighbors and you all of a sudden build a wall around your house, how would that affect me? I knock on your door and ask to come in and you give me permission and that'd be it. So if I'm, want to cross legally, what's the problem? I can cross legally. I don't care if they build a wall. I'm never going to climb the wall anyway. So, I mean, the only reason that people would be upset of the wall because it's that, you're preventing an entry other than the one that's allowed. And, I don't see how it affects anybody. Well, what about, because, I haven't been down to that border and been crossing back and forth across that border since the 80s, okay? So I know it's a totally different situation. But I know back in those days, there were people down there, especially in Arizona, they had ranches, and their property was on both sides of the border. Do they still have that? And those people, there was dirt roads and stuff done by those ranches, and you just pass right by, you pass back and forth. Well, yeah, but that's why you get all the narco trafficking back and forth, too. Well, yeah. Run through. There's this one guy who has a ranch there, yeah. And there's his property all the time. So are they, I think it's in Arizona. So if they're trafficking drugs or trafficking people or whatever it is that they're doing, well, they got, they got an open door there. But, they also, a lot of people die in the desert. Yeah. A lot of people are murdered in the desert. A lot of people are raped in the desert. So, I mean, it's a risk to go across the border, period. I mean, if you're not going, of course it's a risk. I mean, I wouldn't do it. If I couldn't cross, I would go. And just story. I mean, what is it? What is there that I couldn't get here? And yes, people want a better life, and I understood. But I personally have about, I'm going to say, almost 20 relatives who have immigrated legally. I've got one who's about to become an American citizen. So it's not that it's impossible, but, you know, the thing that is frustrating to me is that nobody mentioned that in order for me to be able to get a border crossing card, first I got to get a Mexican passport. So in order to get that Mexican passport, I have to have a valid voter ID card. And to get that, I have to prove that I don't have any criminal charges against me, that I can show that I'm an upstanding citizen, that I can show that I have proof of residence and all that sort of good stuff, and that I'm gainfully employed. Okay, great. So then I get my Mexican passport, and then I go apply for a border crossing card. You know, it's not a problem. Obviously, they don't want to take somebody in who doesn't have a job, who they, you know, can't really know who you are. I mean, it's not like, you know, everybody's findable here. Let's put it that way. You know, they want to know who you are, and I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, at the beginning, they were saying that these people, they didn't have any diseases. There were a couple of cases of mumps or measles or whatever it was, which was no big deal. Now they're starting to report where there are some cases of TB and HIV and AIDS. So, I mean, what are you going to do? That's, you know.
Well, before we get to that, though, you're saying, though, that before you can get that border crossing card to enter into the United States, you have to get a whole list of paperwork from the Mexican government to get permission to leave Mexico.
Absolutely.
Right.
You started to go into Italy or Europe, wherever in Europe, you have to have a passport. Same thing here. I have to have a passport. The Mexican passport allows me to travel any place in the world except the United States. But for that, I just get a border crossing card. And that border crossing card allows me to go, you know, all the way up to San Clemente without any kind of permit. I'm allowed to stay there 48 hours. If I want to go past Los Angeles or past San Clemente and I want to stay 2 weeks or whatever, you go to the border, you know, the immigration office at the border, U.S. immigration office, you ask for a permit. Usually if you ask for a week, they give it to you for a month. I mean, it's not that difficult.
Right. And there's there's tens of thousands of people probably who have that daily border crossing card. That do business, or live in the United States or live in Mexico, that do business back and forth across that border every single day. Yes,
exactly. So, I mean, but there is a standard. So they're saying, okay, but we want to know that you're not going to come over here. You're not going to be burdened on the, you know, on our country. We have the same kind of rules. In order to get you a Mexican visa as a foreigner, you have to bring your U.S. passport. You don't have a U.S. passport, you're not going to be here legally. You have to show 6 months worth of income to begin with. You have to provide me, if I'm going to, you know, work on getting you your Mexican visa here, you're going to have to bring me 6 months worth of bank statements that show that you have a minimum amount of, I think it's $1,500 a month, and on average, and that you have your own means by which you will be able to support yourself. And then you have to bring your, you know, U.S. passport, and then you go through, you know, regular forms and stuff like that. So, I mean, you know, and you do that every year until you can either acquire permanent residency or, you know, you go home. I mean, that's the way it is. As a tourist, you're allowed to stay here for like a week or so, something like that, but for a month, I believe. Or, no, up to 6 months. But it's just that you stop at the border and you ask for a tourist. You can't go south. Let me put it this way. I can't go south into Mexico City or wherever driving without some sort of a, you know, they want to know what's going on there.
Yeah, there's checkpoints.
Now, yes, absolutely.
Now, then you were bringing up the topic about how these migrants now that are living out there in the open are now getting sick with all kinds of different diseases.
Well, what was originally reported that they didn't, because they had the health department had set up, you know, like an area of intentions where they were taking care of them. And at that point, they had checked, I think, almost 2,000 people, but now they're 9,000. And apparently this is what's reported. I don't know how many cases or how factual it is, but you would have to assume there are cases of TB, HIV, and AIDS. I mean, you know, which the TB is the most concern because that's, you know, contagious. But then you've got, like, last night there was a little kid that they had to rush him off to the hospital because he was having an asthma attack, but they're sitting there out in the rain. And, you know, they're all soaked. They don't have any clothes. I mean, you know, at this point, they were given clothes all along the way, but apparently they were dumping them because they didn't want to carry them. So then when they got here, you know, they had the clothes that they pat on their back, and then people were taking them clothes. But now you see piles and piles of clothes along the shelter, where they're dumping. It's garbage because now they're all moldy and mildew. So, right, problems of hiding. There's a little bit of hiding. As I said, they're sleeping in mud and filth. So, that'd be good for them. I mean, doing them too far away, but I mean, leave them alone. Just people in the shelter. Right. They're going to start to belong to each other.
Yeah, okay, 1,000 people, I think the last estimate was like $80 million to have troops down at the border to put some barbed wire and have these product media with their gym down there with their trucks and all their budget. You've seen the media for a kick over the town with these trucks, and there's 10 cities, this whole industry that comes with them. So it's not a shortage of money to take care of these folks and set them up in some kind of way, right?
Well, yes, but that's in the U.S. Here, it's a different story. Here, the city of Tijuana and the state government are taking care of it. So now for the new shelter, they're paying somewhere along, I'm going to say $1,200, $1,500, $100 a month for the shelter. And I might be wrong on that. It might be more than that, but that's just off the top of my head. Right. It's probably more than that because it's a huge place. But in any case, so the city's paying for that. Then they've got to give them food. And I mean, there's a shortage of money in the state. I mean, look, Baja California is pretty much like California is that, they don't have the funds. They aren't paying the teachers. The state and state teachers are not getting paid. And so, of course, there's anger over that. You're not taking care of us. But now everything that, all our taxes are going towards this where, so it is causing a lot of problems. At some point, this is just going to, boil over. Tijuana can't afford either to handle that many people, who are out in the open economically or, in any other way, to be honest. I mean, at some point, and then they're telling these people, which is apparently it's not true. And God, I hope it's not true, but they're telling them that they're going to bring another 15,000 in January. So imagine if we've got, over almost 25,000 people.
From what I understand, that there are other caravans gathering. Do you have any? Are they trying to destabilize the United States, or are they just trying to wreak havoc in all of Central America? Because this is going on in other countries that nobody's talking about but talking about it. And what the Hondurans have said, or the Central Americans have said in general, is that there's a lot of poverty and crime. Well, there is here too. So a lot of things. We've got indigenous people who are underpaid, who do jobs, who don't have infrastructure, who are living without electricity and water. Same situation, but why is this all concentrating on the Hondurans? But of course, at the time, you can't let them go hungry and let them starve or die of illnesses and that either. So it's kind of like a hard place. But why they didn't stop them at the southern border, I don't know. They had a lot of help along the way. I mean, there were videos of I believe army trucks giving them rides. So I mean, this is beyond anything local, or I don't think this is even in the end have to do anything with our president, your president, or the Honduran. I think this something else is going on. Army trucks from what country?
From our country.
Oh, really?
They were given rides by cops and here in our country, semis, and they got buses. I mean, they were in Guadalajara, and then all of a sudden they all started heading to Tijuana. For some reason, they believed that it would be easier to cross over here than it was over there on the eastern border. So I don't know.
Okay, now, is there any information about them? Because these people were poor to start with. Did they have any funds when were they being charged money by these organizers, or were they raising money down there when they first started? Do we know anything about that?
There's actually a video of, and I don't know if I would assume it's here in Tijuana. I don't know who it is. They all have the same T-shirts on of these guys handing out money to women and children. So, and that was another thing. I thought, well, how are they getting pesos or dollars to pay for anything? Because if they're buying stuff at the stores or food or whatever, we don't have the same currency. So where did they get the pesos? Did they, do an exchange? Did they have any to exchange? Somehow they're getting them, some sort of supply. Some people have started to work, they've hired them in little local stores and things like that. So, but that's not the majority. The majority are just sitting there, sitting on the street all day. So they're not doing anything. I I don't know. They had to have had. How did they feed them the entire way? You know, they're being fed here, but I mean, it's not like it's, you know, it's not like it's a lobster dinner. You know, they're doing what they can. It's rice and beans and, you know, whatever is, you know, readily available. I mean, they're trying to give them, you know, nourish them as best that they can. But, it's, you know, you're talking about 9,000 people. That's a difficult thing. So I don't know how they're getting money. But, you know, I don't know. Some of them have money to buy drugs. We've seen, you know, with the reporter of people who come up to him drunk. So they've got money for liquor. They've got money for drugs. Your guess is as good as mine. Did they bring it with them? Did they buy it here? God only knows.
And now this is being covered in the media down there. Because right now we're talking about other thing on TV here now, on the radio. It's very little. In fact, the only people covering this right now are the real heavy racist Laura Ingraham, that type, you know. The people who focus on immigration and the anti-Mexican, those two are talking about this now. Here, every day on TV, this has to be still a problem, right?
Well, especially, you know, I mean, locally it is, and you know, we've got to say, you know, look, I can't speak to any race, and as I said, you know, we're all Hispanic. I mean, you know, we're the same race, so it's not a matter of. I would say it's more a thing of nationalism, if more than anything. They're not trying to isolate them. It's not a feeling of superiority. A lot of it is the attitude. It's the attitude, and even the reporter said, you know. He said, if you let yourself, you could, you know, being among them and talking to them, you could become angry because, you know, a lot of them are very aggressive, and which is not to say the whole group. That's not the case, you know. But and as I said, they're being agitated, and you know, they're being whipped up into a frenzy. So, but I mean, some of them, you know, I've heard them on the, you know, on videos say that, you know, they're going to burn Tijuana down and anybody gets in the way, they're going to go after them. And, you know, so, and it's just I'll tell you one of the major complaints, which is kind of funny, but it's not. A lot of the comments that you see in his videos is, why aren't they cleaning up after themselves? And never mind the streets. I mean, just inside the shelter itself. There was a video that he put up today where he showed how they're all sleeping and living, and there is garbage everywhere. I mean, it's not like they, you know, grabbed a pile of garbage and threw it in a corner. No. They're sleeping amongst it.
But okay, but let me ask you a question.
It's awful.
Even a group of young, violent men here in the States and stuff like that, you got 10,000 of them. Okay, they're unarmed. A small riot police can turn them back and can sectionalize them. You know, why? How come? You know, there has to be something more going on. If the Mexican riot police were not able to stop this group, it's not a huge group.
Well, no, they have stopped them. They've fought them back and you know. But I mean, you're talking about a huge area. I mean, you could have a group run over. I mean, you're talking about miles. Right. You know, the border is, you know, and part of the problem is that they all got their border. But they ended up in their cargo area, so they got lost, and you know, so they have been able to keep them from getting to the border, you know, crossing the border. But I mean, you're talking miles. There's no way. From where the actual border is, if you go all along the international highway, that's miles and miles and miles of border. You'd have to have an army, and even then, you know, you're still talking about miles. It's ridiculous. So, but they're not very well organized to begin with, and they're trying to climb the fences. And you know, I mean, one woman fell and impaled herself.
Oh my God.
You know, and they, you know, of course they, you know, took care of her and all that. But I mean, you know, they're putting themselves at risk and they're running with their kids. And I mean, it's awful. It's just a terrible situation. It's a terrible situation. So whoever is in charge of these people they're not organizing them very well. They're not taking care of them. They're not meeting any of their needs at all in any way, shape or form. So, you know.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation, but this isn't by accident. This is, you know, seems to be by design, you know. Okay.
There's no way that this happened by accident.
Yeah.
The Hondurans wouldn't have had the wherewithal or the knowledge to do any of it.
Right. Okay. Listen, we're out of time. What do you want to leave us with in 1 minute or 2 minutes? You don't have anything you want to plug, right? I know that. You want to plug anything?
Yeah.
Then what do you want to leave us with, Yola?
You know, What I would like to tell you is that, and I wrote this in the post, the celebrities should put their money where their mouths are. All the crying and the gnashing of teeth over the poverty-stricken, Central Americans. I agree. But you know what? Everybody pony up $1 million and let's put that to building housing and schools, and let's make their country better. Even if they let 9,000 people into the United States, that is not going to help Honduras. There's still going to be 9 million who are hungry and poverty-stricken. So, letting them across the border, which they're not going to, is not going to do anybody in the end any really good. And they don't have any skills to begin with. So, the majority of them. So what are they going to go do? How are they going to live? How are they going to survive? And in all honesty, even if they got jobs and all that, and they were lucky and, and that would be great, how much could they have every month to send home? I mean, that's a fact.
Yeah, it's so true. A little bit of American money goes so far down, when you get down to the south of the border. One of the churches I'm involved with here has a organization where they go down and they provide these pumps, these filters, these water filtration systems so that people can drink the water,
Yeah, I've seen them, yeah.
A little bit of money. It's only a little bit of money, and it makes such an impact on these small towns down there. Hey, but Yoli, thank you so much. Whatever you come up with, you can see down that you want to send to us and report to us, please continue doing so, okay? Thank you so much.
I sure will. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoli. It's an old friend, Yoli Castro, down there. She's been with the show for a very long time, so thank you so much, Yoli.
Thanks, Ed. You have a good one.
You too. Okay, I'm going to play a little quick message here, then we'll wrap up. What a mess. What a mess, man. I can't even figure out what's going on. And now a word from our sponsors. Check out cartking.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, cartking.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subhash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing, and distribution, and much, much more. Get a hold of Subhash Technosis by email at info@subhash.com. Site is www.subhash.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites. And we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Oh boy, what a mess. Thank you so much, Yoli Castro. And I want to emphasize to you that Yoli's an old friend of the show. She's been around for 5 years. I've known her for a long time. So this isn't someone with a political agenda or whatever like that who's contacting me saying, hey, let me come on the show and spew hatred and all this kind of stuff here. What she's seeing firsthand is a very suspicious situation here. There's an agenda behind this, you know, and my heart was tugged when I saw these images too. And right away I fell into my little programmed response. But then I just started thinking, and I said, this is these pictures do look staged, you know, and a lot of stuff does seem staged, and some pictures were taken out of context and things like that as well. And I started, what group would want to do this right before the midterm elections? And it just seemed weird. I'm suspecting Clintons, to tell you the truth, you know, because they would be the ones to have a gain to this anyway, and they could pull it off too. And I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Clinton supporter. You know, I think the border wall is idiotic. You know, you put a wall down at the border. By the way, I crossed back and forth across that border illegally 10,000 times. If I wanted to, I know I could still do it if I had to. Also, I think it's only like 40% of illegal immigrants in the United States are from border crossings, and that includes Canada and Mexico, and the rest they fly in. You know, people fly in from China and they overstay their visas, and that's the issue. And there's ways to resolve immigration problems. You can have people checking, just like pre-court supervision and bail. You know, there's ways to get back up coming. Anyway, thank you so much for enjoying the show. Please, we need your support. Check out OppermanReport.com. Become a member of our member section. There's a lot of exclusive content. I'll give you a discount as long as you can. If you want to take me, thank you so much.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by CartKing.com. That's cart-king.com. That's, by the way, that's with a capital C, C-A-R-T. A lot of people think that's a K. It's C-A-R-T. 877-986-7771. That's cart-king.com. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the business you manage right now could kickstart extra revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, food, carts, and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. So you go to the website, cart-king.com. You check out the different designs. You figure out which one applies to your business. You send them little notes. Say, this is what I want. They'll custom design it for you. They'll custom build it for you. Then they'll ship it worldwide. CartKing.com. That's cart-king.com. 877-986-7771. Okay, we just recently did a show about this immigrant caravan coming up from Honduras, passing through Mexico with Yoli Castro. Now, while this controversy was going on, another Facebook friend of mine, Ricardo Tenori, was commenting as well, because he also lives down there in the area where this is going on. So these are local firsthand eyewitnesses giving us their take on it. And they have differing perceptions of what they're seeing and what they're experiencing down there in Mexico. So we invited Ricardo Tenori. Once again, he's a longtime listener of the show and a longtime Facebook friend. So there's another guy. He's not like a plant, I'm pretty sure. I guess we'll find out a little bit more as we talk to him. But Ricardo Tenori, are you there?
I'm here, Ed.
Thank you so much. Just tell us a bit about yourself. Who is Ricardo Tenori?
Well, I'm 65 years of age, and I was born, raised, and educated in San Diego, California. My parents have since passed on. My mother was European American, mostly of Irish ancestry, and my father was Mexican. And my dad's parents were mostly of Mexican Indian origin, which is what I identify with the most. As for my academic and professional background, it's in clinical medical psychology. Since the 80s, I've worked part-time in clinical settings and also full-time as a workers' compensation AOE, COE specialist through California PI and insurance adjuster agencies, interviewing claimants, employers, supervisors, and other staff regarding industrial injuries and also claims for work environmental stress, which is my primary specialty in relation to my clinical background. And as for political, civil, and human rights activism, since the late 70s, I've primarily been involved in indigenous issues, regional U.S.-Mexico border migration and immigration issues, and LGBT issues. From 1991 to 2003, I was a volunteer ombudsman and steering committee member of the San Diego office of the American Friends Service Committee of the U.S.-Mexico Border Program, which is a National Society of Friends or Quaker Peace and Social Justice organization. And almost simultaneously, I was a volunteer ombudsman and assistant director of the Binational Center for Human Rights here in Tijuana, which was founded by and still directed by social anthropologist Victor Clark Alfaro, who is also currently a professor in the Department of Latin American Studies at San Diego State University. I've been a resident of Tijuana since 1990 and have been semi-retired from everything for the past several years as a prostate cancer survivor.
Mm-hmm. And you got a great radio voice, too.
I had some training when I was young.
This could be the show that takes us into FM radio. You could break us into NPR right after the show. I'm going to use this as my demo. Okay, what do you see going on down there?
Well, responding to basically what you and Julie had a conversation about, there were apparently some open questions. And one of them was, how did this all start and who's basically sponsoring these caravans? Well, it goes back to an organization that's been around for about 15 years, a binational organization called Pueblos Sin Fronteras, which is an NGO that sponsors migrant shelters and assistance, and they've actually been leading caravans from Mexico and Central America during that time. It has been well publicized, and so that's basically behind it. There was a rumor that this latest caravan, particularly from Honduras, the media reported that there was money being handed out to the migrants on the way up after they crossed from Guatemala and up through Mexico City. And the rumor about that was that it was an opposition political party from Honduras sponsoring that to make the existing political party and government power look bad. But also, Pueblos Sin Fronteras also has funds and was able to provide some funding and assistance on the way up.
Well, let me ask you this. Then down in Honduras, how is this organized? Like, how do these people know that this is about to come about? How do they know who to contact? Is it word of mouth, or are there ads in the newspaper? What goes on?
I don't know exactly. In your interview with Jolie, the name of Roberto Flote was brought up, a.k.a. Anna K., who's a transgender person who came up with the caravan from Mexico City. That person is a doctoral student at Harvard in anthropology, and she has gone down there and would probably know more precisely how it was organized in Honduras. And but there's also a lot of about 3/4 of the migrants are Hondurans, but then the other 1/4 a mixture of Salvadorans and Guatemalans and a handful of Nicaraguans. But word spreads in Central America. But that's basically, in a general sense, how it was organized.
You mentioned this Roberto Flota as a transgender.
Yes.
And Yoli was mentioning, too, about that these organizers also, too, they staged a same-sex wedding down there in Mexico, because there's something in the news about that right now, too. There was a big are these the same people, the ones you see in the news?
Yeah, after they arrived in Tijuana, I believe it was in Tijuana, they performed a communal symbolic same-sex marriage ceremony. They weren't actually legally married. In the state of Baja California, persons of the same gender can marry, although it's a more bureaucratic process than it is for heterosexual couples. But this was just a symbolic ceremony.
Okay, and I find it interesting that because these are two separate stories over here. Over here we have the story of the same-sex wedding happening, and they don't mention that these are the same organizers of the caravan.
I'm not sure who organized that wedding. I'm familiar with the local LGBT organizations here in Tijuana, and they didn't really have anything to do with it. I think it was, again, people who were involved with Fellow Seat from Terrace and perhaps Roberto as well.
Okay, so that's still in question. Okay. Now, what about all this stuff we're seeing about this crossing with the tear gas and stuff? Well, what can you tell us about that? How far do you live from there?
I live 6 blocks from the border. I live in an elevated neighborhood. I can see the border from my window. On that Sunday when the stampede, if you want to call it, or rush to the border took place, I could see it somewhat from my window with binoculars. U.S. Customs and Border Protection was well prepared. They had drills prior to that, and they got concert to wire up around the port of entries, and they had drills. And then when they tried to cross over the fence, they were prepared. They had tear gas, which ordered them off.
And what about the rock throwing from the migrant side? Has this been reported down there widely, like eyewitnesses to see this?
Well, over the years, there's always been rock throwing incidents over the border, mainly at Border Patrol units, mainly on the part of Mexicans along the fence all the way from Texas to California. And so there may have been a few rock throwers among the crowd there. I certainly wouldn't dispute it.
Okay. And then what about this? You hear these stories about that they were putting the women and children in front and that they were staging photo opportunities?
No, that was nonsense.
Okay.
Not true. The men mainly led the vanguard and adult women.
Okay. I had another question for you, but it slipped my mind.
Actually, I've got a stat for you. As of the 1st of December here in Tijuana, these are rounded out figures. We've got, these are age 18 and older, men 3,800, women 1,100, boys 550, girls 500. And then 125 miles east of here in the Baja capital of Mexicali, there are about 750 migrants with no gender and age breakdown.
Okay, the organizers, do you think the organizers are politically motivated?
The original organizers, of course, in Central America seem to be, as far as after they crossed into Mexico. I believe it was just more of an NGO social justice issue with Pueblo Sin Fronteras and other migrant and rights organizations, social justice, in both the U.S. and Mexico. As was touched upon in your interview with Jolie, the first migrants to arrive in this latest caravan were about 75 members of the LGBT community from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And they turned out to be sponsored by a group of immigration attorneys in the U.S. I assume they might be associated with the LGBT law organization, immigration division. And they paid for their transportation in long-haul Greyhound-like buses up from Mexico City to Tijuana. They paid for that. And then they rented a house in the upscale Playas de Tijuana neighborhood, coastal neighborhood here, which was available for rent by the week. And put them up there. And some of the neighbors down there got upset about it. One of the people in the neighborhood tend to be right-wing conservative oriented and rather xenophobic. And one of the reasons I was done is because of when it comes to Latin American migrants and refugees, actually it's LGBT people, particularly trans people, who have the best chance of getting asylum. And the reason for that is there's in Latin America, particularly Mexico and Central America, there's still a lot of discrimination in employment against trans people who live trans 24/7. Those that don't want to work as sex workers are usually limited to working in gay bars or gay nightclubs or nightclubs that have transvestite shows. That's those who can't afford to become self-employed. It's very difficult. Here in Tijuana, I've known 3 Mexican trans women who gained asylum and are now living in California. On the other hand, I know another trans woman who has a university degree in engineering, who's 24/7 as a trans, and she was fortunate enough to get employment as an engineer at a progressive-owned large tech company here in Tijuana.
Now, would that be grounds for asylum in the United States? Do we recognize that as a legitimate need for asylum if you're LGBT, if you're trans?
Yes. Over the years and over the past decade or so, there have been a lot of trans people from Mexico and elsewhere who have fairly easily gained asylum because it's been difficult for them to find employment. And again, in certain parts of Mexico and in other parts of Latin America, there's a lot of social discrimination as well, and harassment, and violence.
Okay, so then at least for this portion of the group, you said 75 or so people?
Yes.
Okay, so then for at least for those 75, it's a no-brainer. They're definitely going to get asylum. They qualify. They should be accepted in with no problem. Why would this group choose to mix in with the other group who are questionable that may not qualify for asylum?
Well, because I assume that when they organized, when they started out in Central America, like last May here in Tijuana, when a smaller caravan arrived, local LGBT organization set up booths near the Chaparral Pedwest border crossing where they had gathered, offering assistance. And so you have LGBT organizations, regional ones that provided initial assistance and special assistance for that community.
Okay, this is fascinating because up here north of the border, we hear nothing about this element of the LGBT community whatsoever. Nothing, no mention. It's all women and children, families, nothing about the LGBT whatsoever. And then, but we do have, there was a news story just recently about this couple that just had a gay wedding down there in Mexico. But then again, no connection between that and the caravan. It's fascinating how the news doesn't quite travel undisturbed. You know what I mean? Now, what about the conditions they're living under now? This is totally off the news here in America, in North America, where we live right now, in the United States. There's nothing about this in the news whatsoever. It's like it just went away. They no longer exist. What's been going on the past week with the conditions down there?
Well, recently the migrants were moved out of the original sports center where they were housed. It just got too full. It became too small of a facility, and they were moved about 10 miles east of here to a much larger sports facility in the east part of town, which has a large, gymnasium structure with a roof over it, so when it rains, they can go in there. And a lot of them provided small tents to stay in. There's still a handful of migrants who are now camped out of the original encampment. They're mostly the younger males who elected not to go up there because their goal is to, eventually try to jump the fence again, not necessarily near the port of entry, but maybe further out east in the entry. They don't have to hire a pollero or roadie to north. That's the main reason we suspect that they're still there.
Now,
And there are social service organizations in Tijuana and in the general area that are providing them with what we call in Spanish dispenses, bags of provisions, food, whatnot. So they're eating.
are any of them allowed to leave and get employment and work?
Yes, Mexican immigration has already issued over 800. There are two. There's Baja California is only about 2%. There's still working jobs in Baja California, particularly at the maquiladora factories, the manufacturers. There's always been a high turnover of Mexican employees. They're paying or two of who got a job at one smart final stores there, and they're working as stock clerks.
You has been to absorb the people.
Been government and Tijuana. The government provided much assistance. We have their effective with the right people. Former mayor, one who was mediator in the government, she said the of California is being paid to be more moderate at retired teachers who have pensions or their monthly pensions. And everybody's blaming that on the governor. The governor says, well, it's because the teachers' funding and pensions are subsidized by the federal government. They haven't been sending sufficient funds. But it also happened now since the new president came to office on December 1st.
What do you think with the new president? You encouraged?
Yeah, I like him overall. He's a left of center populist. I wouldn't say he has narcissistic personality disorder like Trump does. He comes across as very honest. He's cutting a lot of fat in government, fat salaries and whatnot. In fact, the Mexican Supreme Court just overturned an order that he made, which was that no federal employee could earn more than the president. And he cut his own salary to 40% down from what the average salary was for the president. It's almost equivalent to the president of the U.S.
Yeah, I saw also too. He's selling off a bunch of planes and stuff like that.
Yeah, the presidential plane is the Mexican version of Air Force One is up for sale. It's just as state of the art as Air Force One. It was rather funny during his after his swearing in, he gave a speech, and Enrique Peña Nieto, the outgoing president, was sitting there, and when the López Obrador brought up that he was going to sell that plane, the look on Peña Nieto's face is turned very sour because he was the one who acquired it.
Okay, well, at least he had a chance to use it for a little while. All right, let's take a commercial break. We're here with Ricardo Tenero. He's down there in Mexico. He's telling us about this migrant caravan that's been coming up from Honduras. So far already, we've gotten some new information we haven't had before. So when we come back, we'll be filling in the rest of these gaps with Ricardo Tenero after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Check out CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subhash Technosis by email at info@subhashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subhashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Ricardo Tenero from Mexico, Tijuana area, and we're talking about the migrant caravan. Now, how prepared are they when they leave Honduras, when they start their way up? Because you see some of these pictures, and they're wearing flip-flops on their feet. Is that common? Oops. Oh, yeah, I'm still on mute. I'm sorry, Ricardo. We've been back for a couple of seconds. I had you on mute there. I was asking you how prepared were they when they left Honduras? Because when we see them on TV, a lot of them are wearing flip-flops on their feet. Is that common?
No, I suppose some were wearing flip-flops, as you said, but most of the ones that I've seen were wearing shoes.
Okay. That's fascinating, because over here, almost every time I see someone walking, they're wearing flip-flops. And now what about this, too? Now, you said they had buses different occasionally, too, and Aioli was saying that they had even some kind of army trucks with transporting. But now, when we watch from here from the news, we only almost entirely see these long caravans of people walking. So now, are those photo opportunities being staged where they get off the trucks and then they walk for a period?
Well, that's mainly in southern Mexico, between Guatemala and Mexico City. And then, most of those people wouldn't have made it walking all the way from the Guatemalan border up to Tijuana. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
So the Mexican government actually ended up along with these NGO organizations in providing bus transportation up there for them. And even the Mexican army is giving them lifts.
And then what about the skirmishes? On the other hand, you see skirmishes with the Mexican police or the Mexican SWAT teams or whatever they are.
I view that as sort of a facade. They placed Mexican federal police along the border with Guatemala with riot shields. They really didn't put up much of a fight or resistance to them. And because if they really wanted to stop them, they could have used tear gas.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to stop crowds of people. We've seen that 1,000 times.
It's because, for decades, there's always been Central Americans coming up through Mexico. Most of them, a lot of them come up on what is known the Iron Maiden, the train that runs up through Mexico. And probably seen photos and video of them in the news media sitting on top of the train. But the caravans are safer because in the past, a lot of small caravans of Central American migrants, even Mexican migrants coming up from Mexico to northern border areas, have been assaulted, robbed, even kidnapped. And in fact, in my book, the lowest form of a criminal in Mexico are those that kidnap poor migrants and then try to extort their families to let them go by phone calls and whatnot. But that has happened.
And now, what about with this group coming up right now? They seem to be ripe for human trafficking and abductions, just like you said. Do we hear about any of that going on?
You hear about it. There's no concrete evidence as far as human trafficking goes, say in relation to prostitution or slave labor. That's even happened with Mexican migrants here and there, but I wouldn't say on a really large epidemic scale.
Okay, and also too, you hear, I don't know if you see it down there, but Trump says that these aren't even their own kids, that they grab kids and then they just start dragging them across the border in order to get asylum. Is there any evidence of that whatsoever?
No.
This is crazy. I can say it's the saddest thing, man. We have to even talk like this. But it's a good question, though, is the political motivation for this, because now this happened right during our North American, the United States midterm elections, right? Yeah. So obviously that was played right into Trump's base. Now, are they aware of this down there, or were they unaware of this? It was just what do
you mean?
The timing of right into Trump's his base. Oh. And if some of these characters said they're from Harvard and stuff like that, wouldn't they wear this?
Yes, the timing of that is interesting. But again, particularly since the majority of them are Hondurans and supposedly of the opposition party down there,
right,
egging them on to come up and giving them, seed money. It was just timing from that end as well.
Just fascinating. Just fascinating how, I think the biggest problem is we're really not getting the straight story from the news. Everyone has an agenda.
Yeah, well, I watch, I watch it on NBC and also Telemundo and then the Mexican networks. It's all pretty much the same.
And what do you make of the U.S. coverage of this?
It's accurate. I mean, they video record what's there.
So you think it's fairly accurate then?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay. Now what about, again, when they prepare to leave, do they have any funds that they take with them? Like, how do they eat on the trip and stuff?
On the way up after they cross from Guatemala?
Yeah.
Yeah, well a lot of Mexican ones when they were walking along the route were handing out food and blankets and provisions and whatnot. And again, you have the NGOs, the shelters and whatnot, migrant shelters. There are migrant shelters all throughout Mexico for the Mexican migrants who make their way up north. And so they just extended that to the Central American migrants.
And what do you think is going to happen from now? Do you think they're going to make it across the border? Are they even being allowed to request asylum, to present themselves to request asylum?
That's very difficult. In fact, technically, anybody who goes to a port of entry can request asylum, but in the San Diego sector, some of them went to the Otay Mesa border crossing, about 15-minute drive east of San Ysidro, and were requesting asylum there, and the CBP officers there were telling them, no, you got to go to San Ysidro to do that. We're only doing that at San Ysidro. Then they go to San Ysidro, and they're actually processing average 100 per day.
So then, and how many are left right now?
Well, the stats I gave to you a little earlier, those are the numbers that are currently in Tijuana. So, that was a week or so ago.
And what about what we hear about illness? That a lot of these people they're taken ill.
There's some of the kids have broken out with measles.
Oh, brother, can you imagine that?
Yeah. But they're rushed away to isolation. State health organization takes care of them. The state of Baja California, its Department of Health has been very attentive to them at these holding facilities, constant medical attention there, blood tests, all sorts of general medical exams. They don't want epidemics breaking out here. So.
And what about just your daily activities? Does this cause traffic problems and stuff like that? Lines at the stores and things?
Oh, no, not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
The migrants stick pretty much around where they're concentrated. In fact, the sports centers where they stay have a curfew. I think it's 10 p.m. curfew. They can go out and walk around, and if they have any money, they can shop.
Okay.
Purchases back. What's eventually going to happen? Most of these people are realizing now they're not going to get asylum, and so it's broken down into basically three categories. There's going to be some who's going to continue to stay here, and mainly the young males are going to try and jump the fence later on. And then you have the other third who have decided to make Mexico their home, get the resident work visas, and stay here. And then there's another third or so that have, according to a lot of interviews that the media has done with them, they're planning on returning to their home countries.
Really? They're going to head back down?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. What a nightmare.
And the Mexican government is assisting with that. Those who just want to turn themselves into Mexican immigration, not as detainees, but who want to return, they're giving them flights home.
Now, are they aware of the situation that if they do cross the border, that they could be separated from their children put in cages and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I'm sure they've heard of that. So, you got very few kids that are trying to cross. During that stampede a couple of Sundays ago, there were a lot of kids out there. But I'm sure they're just willing to take the risk.
And in general, down there in Mexico, what's the average person's opinion of this situation with the cages?
Oh, they're outraged.
Yeah.
And what's hypocritical, or in Tijuana here, the local media's done polls of the citizenry, and about 50% of the population's in favor and support of the migrants. The other 50% isn't. And I say to the ones who are opposed to their presence here that they have nothing to complain about when Mexican citizens who are in the U.S. and unauthorized being abused and treated bad.
Now, Yoli was saying, too, about the rumors among the migrants, that the rumors were just rampant, with just wild stories. Have you noticed that as well?
No, I got a chuckle out of when she brought up that she had heard that Central Americans had heard rumors that the Russians and Iranians were going to help get across the border.
Yeah.
That was the first for me.
You've never heard that before?
Yeah.
Okay, because
I'm sure they were told all sorts of bogus stories and promises down there.
Does it seem like the organizers have their best interest at heart?
Yes, the vast majority. I haven't personally come across in the news media or elsewhere, my contacts, that there are any sinister people out there with ulterior motives, such as in relation to drug cartels trying to recruit some of these younger adult migrants to serve as mules crossing drugs across the border, etc.
And also, too, she mentioned something that I never heard before either, about Haitians. They have a large Haitian population down there?
Yeah, they've been here for about 2 years ago. We had a large influx of Haitians. Haitians are allowed to enter Mexico without a visa. They can come as tourists. And they made their way up to mainly here, Tijuana, to do the same as the Central Americans, request asylum. Most of them were turned down, and we've got over 3,000 now who, again, obtained resident work visas and are making Tijuana their home. They're excellent citizens because, unlike most of the Central Americans who are poor and have minimal education, the Haitians are from the Haitian middle class. They're educated. They're not poor Haitians. And so they've come here with skills, but they just, under current U.S. immigration law, they just didn't qualify for asylum.
So, right, because if they got there, they had to get there by plane, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they had to pay. They could afford a plane ticket to get there. They didn't walk over. So
yeah, when they got here, I mean, even still, they're dressed nicely. They don't look poor.
Okay.
And they're from the Haitian middle class, which by U.S. standards would be lower working class economically, but most of them are educated people.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Just think, the reason why they have to flee Haiti is because the U.S. president basically stole all their relief funds, and we still can't give them asylum to come in after we've kept their country in poverty and destruction. It just, your mind explodes when you think of when you connect all the dots, you know?
Yeah, I've been well educated on the Opperman report about the Clinton Foundation and what they've done out there.
It's just unbelievable. You know, you're going to steal from people. You're going to steal from people that are buried under rocks.
And plus, on top of that, their own government's very corrupt.
Oh yeah, well,
stolen billions.
Yeah. Now, is there anything about this whole controversy that I haven't asked you that I've left out that you'd like to share with us?
Boy, we covered a lot of territory. I can't really think of anything else at this time.
Okay, well, what would you like to leave us with then?
Well, I'd like to leave us with the roots of all this migration. There's recently been a photographic meme floating around on social media of a young Native American woman holding up a sign at a rally saying, "Our indigenous migration routes existed long before your borders." And most Guatemalans, Hondurans, El Salvadorans are of various degrees of Mayan bloods, just like those in Chiapas and the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. And this whole attitude, if you will, is rooted in the thousands of years of Indian blood people migrating around the North American Indian continent for the purposes of better survival. Prior to the 20th century, it was mainly due to drought and natural conditions, and then since then it's been for economic, but still it's all about survival. And they see it as a natural right, just like bird and animal migration.
Ricardo Tenari, thank you so much. I really appreciate your insight and your local firsthand eyewitness of what's going on down there. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Ed.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. All right. Then we had Ricardo Tenari, like I said, long-time listener to the show, Facebook friend, again, someone with no agenda, who is just sharing his information, firsthand eyewitness account. Conflicts a bit with Yoli. But then again, listen, people have their own perspectives, their own ideas and stuff like that. We can't say that one is any better than the other. We can only reach out to every source that we can and try and get their firsthand reporting back to us. And this is what I'm trying to do to you here. If you like today's show, check out OppermanReport.com. This is going into the members section, so you should already be a member. Unless, by the way, too, I hate to bring this up, but I'm aware of people sharing their passwords. Okay, guys? You know, we can't see this, and every now and then it's somebody, you know, a friend of mine. It's kind of a discouraging to see people, because we do want to encourage as many paying members as we can get, okay? We've got to have quite a few more views than we have paying members. So it's not like this goes unnoticed, all right? Especially, you know, someone, keeps an eye on things like I do. Got to keep my eye on, watch my back constantly in this business. We'll get into that on another occasion, get into that further. But thank you so much there, Ricardo Tenari. And the migrant situation down there. Fascinating. This whole thing about, I got to look into this more thoroughly. That these two LGBT organizers have a wedding down there. And up here, it's two different stories. It's the same story. The same guys with the caravan getting the gay wedding. Why is it up here? It's two separate stories that they're not connected at all. Like, why not just say these are the same guys? You know what I mean? If that's what it is, why not say it? Unless there's some kind of agenda. I don't know. I'm getting more and more suspicious in my old days. What was I going to say the other... okay, we'll get into that another time. But thank you so much for listening. Hope we opened up some more avenues of investigation and thought here with the Mexican, South American migration and asylum seekers.